Here's an experiment for you. Take passionate experts in human resource technology. Invite cross-industry experts from inside and outside HR. Mix in what's happening in people analytics today. Give them the technology to connect. Hit record. Pour their discussions into a beaker. Mix thoroughly. And voila, you get the HR Data Labs podcast, where we explore the impact of data and analytics to your business. We may get passionate and even irreverent, but count on each episode challenging and enhancing your understanding of the way people data can be used to solve real-world problems. Now, here's your host, David Turetsky.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky, alongside my friend, co-host, partner, and Salary.com colleague, Dwight Brown. Hello, Dwight.
Hello, David. How you doing?
Oh, I'm okay. How are you?
Good.
So I'm not going to talk about meteorological. Damn it. It's not spring yet. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. You'll get the joke if you listen to the Catherine Hammond podcast. You'll understand why I just can't speak. Anyways, so today, Dwight and I have with us Jonathan Whistman. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to be back visiting with you both. And evidently you have inter-episode jokes to keep your audience tied in between episodes. So
you have to listen to the whole series in order to be able to really get the value out of these jokes. So.
The cliffhanger episodes.
We have a few of those. We
do, actually.
Yeah.
This might be one of them.
It could be, depending upon how it goes. But Jonathan, tell us about yourself and how you got to this moment in time.
Oh, boy, that is a big existential question. So I'm going to limit it down to sort of the professional world.
Yes, remember how long this podcast goes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, my father met my mother, but I'm best known for writing a book. Oh, my
goodness, we're going to go back that far.
Yeah, I'm going to go way back. I'm best known for writing a book called The Sales Boss, and it is about building high-performing sales teams. How do you find the people, recruit them onto the team? How do you get the systems and processes around doing that? And it comes from my experience building and selling a couple of companies and realizing at the heart of every organization's success is the ability to build a team of people, and even more importantly, to have the sales heart of the company beating strongly, because that lifeblood feeds every other part of the organization. So that's my history. I'm currently running an AI company that helps organizations find great people. So that's the area I live and breathe.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be talking a lot about that and your book as we get into our topic.
And unlike a lot of our guests, I've actually had the pleasure of being able to meet Jonathan in person and share adventures together in person. So I don't think I've met any of our podcast guests in person.
I've met a bunch of them. A lot of them are my friends, so...
Well, we're out here in the desert together, and when I met David and Dwight, as a sort of a precursor to the show, Dwight said, parasailing, and I was like, yes.
Paragliding.
Paragliding, yeah, I got that wrong. So he invited me to go, and I got to see a historic event take place on a dirt road out north of Phoenix.
A historic event that could have gone really bad.
That is the cliffhanger part of this episode. So tune in next week.
Tune in next week when we talk to Jonathan about what Dwight did when he went up in the air the last time.
We're going to attach the video that Jonathan took of me botching my paragliding launch. We'll attach it with the episode.
That's lovely.
You actually handled it like a pro. I didn't even see you break a sweat.
No, you didn't see him break a sweat, but you may have heard him cursing from 1,000 feet
in the air by then, so it's
exactly.
Jonathan, as we do for every one of our guests, though, we need to ask you, what's one fun thing that no one knows about you?
Wow, no one knows about me.
No one, and that precludes you from using the whole thing about Dwight now.
Yeah. What is one thing that nobody knows about me? That's a tough question.
It is.
I'm gonna have to go with most people don't know about me is that I am a complete introvert. I think nobody would guess that about me.
That's definitely true.
We just talked about introverts in sales and the podcast we just recorded.
Yeah.
I just early in life discovered that if I was going to do anything, I had to become extroverted. So it's sort of a push for me to do it. And I can do it. But I would guess that if you polled even like 9 out of 10 of my friends, they would all peg me as an extrovert.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah, you learn and adapt. You have to do it. Become survival almost. Yeah.
But now everyone knows.
So, Jonathan, the topic we're going to talk about today is actually one that I think a lot of people will be interested in, because the topic of AI is pretty much on the top of most teams' minds, especially in HR, when they're talking about, well, how will it affect their lives? So today's topic is how to use AI and automation to improve the quality of your hires. So our first question is, what is wrong with the current recruiting process?
Hey, this is William Tincup, and you should know about the You Should Know podcast. It's a topical, fun podcast with Ron, myself, and a guest, or guests, plural sometimes, and we tackle the most timely topics of the day. Give it a look, give it a listen, and subscribe. Thanks.
I think the thing that is wrong is the burden of the weight of just the process of recruiting. When the way we get introduced to companies, the way we apply to companies, people sorting through resumes, like there's just a lot of mind-numbingly dull things that happen. And we're sort of looking at chance that we get that magical connection between the right person and the right role. And so I think it's almost dehumanized the process of applying for jobs. It can be disheartening for the applicant looking for meaningful work, and certainly for a company who has an opening that they need a talented, bright individual to fill. You know, that mind-numbingly dull work of sorting through applicants, it's just completely inefficient. So I think there's a ton of upside opportunities for organizations to do that in a more human way.
Well, it's different of saying it's a more human way than a more humane way, because for a lot of us who've applied to jobs within the last 5 years and getting a rejection notice 5 seconds after you've been applied, we kind of wish for the days when we used to send in resumes to the New York Times and have it actually come back maybe, a month later with a letter in the mail saying, yes, we would like to meet with you, or no, we've chosen somebody else.
Well, that's a human problem. The human didn't use the automation delay button to say, at least set it at 24 hours so it feels real.
Right. Exactly. Right. Feels real. Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, that's one of the problems, is that when you now have an algorithm that's looking through the candidates that have applied, or at least just let's call them applicants at that point. They're not really even candidates, but the applicants. You're using a scoring algorithm on the back end to kind of get who the right group is to send through. Having the human program that, or to choose or filter, that's got to take training, doesn't it? I mean, maybe it is the human's fault of what the AI is allowing through.
This is a question that's hotly debated in HR, particularly now. And here's my take on it: is that when you can use automation correctly and use AI, and AI, it's a big term that some people are sort of, scared of what it is. If you can just simplify it to, at its core, what is AI? AI is really about recognizing patterns, and it's, large mathematical models. That's all it is. I liken it to, if you've ever been in an airplane and you're, taking off from the airfield, or Dwight, if you're running behind a truck before your parachute lifts you off the ground, when you're at a certain height, like all you can see is right around you, right? Maybe the treetops and that sort of thing. As you get a little higher, you might know what city you're in. When you get high enough, you look down at the field, all of a sudden you see, oh, there's circular, crops. Oh, there's a cornfield there. And the higher you go, the more patterns that you can see. And that's what using AI allows an organization to do, is to recognize patterns at a scale and a speed at which it's just completely impossible for humans to do sustainably. And so if you can simplify it to that, then the real question is, what are the patterns that I'm unaware of? So if you have somebody, in your office sitting, sorting through resume, they have a pattern they're using. They have a mental shortcut they're using to say this person, gets an interview, this person doesn't. But you just have to get comfortable with the fact that a computer model that's supervised correctly. I always think there should be a human in the loop, but supervised correctly, they're actually going to make a better decision most of the time. They're not coming into the office with indigestion. They didn't just have a fight with their wife. If you can set the parameters correctly, you're going to get a very similar output every single time. Yes, you have to be careful that you're not inadvertently screening out people by race or education or, by gender. But that's a very well-studied area in human resources, and I think that AI done correctly actually reduces the amount of those what I call unconscious biases, which is really just somebody unconsciously applying a pattern that they're not even aware that they're doing.
Well, but that actually gets into the job description and who you're targeting and what platforms you're targeting too, isn't it? It's not just the selection part of that.
Yeah, it goes all the way down the list. So if you're posting your jobs on LinkedIn, you're getting one sort of candidate. You're on Craigslist, you're on another, right? Just by nature of where you posted, you're introducing some bias into the hiring process in terms of what kind of candidates you're going to get in.
Exactly.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
And I guess the question from there is, that goes to, as we mentioned, the humans that are in control of the processes and who've programmed it or who've set it up, right? And so whether it's the hiring manager creating the job description, whether it's the talent acquisition or the recruiter who's actually gathering those requirements and then putting them into the platform, whatever platform is chosen, and then whomever has programmed the entire process and workflows, all of those people have a hand in what are the applicants or what are the candidates that come out of that applicant process, right?
Yeah, that's it. And the truth is, even without technology, they're putting a process in place.
Exactly.
So where I think that the advantages for organizations is if they can take away that, just call it factory work of going through resume and sourcing candidates and, trying to do the initial match, they can spend real quality time having meaningful conversations at the bottom of the funnel with the best few candidates.
Right.
And that's where I see the advantage. There's technology coming as well. You're probably paying attention to the world of voice AI, where it sounds very human. So imagine applicants being able to hit a website, click a button that says "Interview me now," where they can ask all of those questions that they may. And there's a whole study in the coaching field. I'm using the wrong word, where people are actually more transparent talking to an AI than they are to a human. Right? Because there's no judgment there. And what we find is using a voice AI actually allows an applicant to ask meaningful questions like, what do you pay? Which sometimes people will wait till the third or fourth interview just out of this false sense of I'm being polite. You're giving the candidate the opportunity right at the front end to ask all the questions they want to decide whether or not you're even a company they want to apply for. And my belief, and I write about it in my book, when you're trying to put together a team of any sort, but especially with a sales team, your goal is actually not to attract candidates. Your job is to repel candidates. And let me give you an example that might sound counterintuitive, but if if you're watching TV and you see an ad for the Marines, like you got bombs blowing up, you got people chasing you've got some of the epic battles that have happened in World War as a recruiting ad. For me, I'm patriotic, but I'm checking out, right? There are a certain subset of people who not only are patriotic, but they raise their hand and they're on fire. They're like, that's for me. That's where I want to live.
Okay, but both of you want to not just jump out of planes, but you want to actually go up, and maybe the Marines might not be your place, but Air Force might be.
Air Force might be it.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. But
You know,
get
go to the
these-
Navy. They might be putting you in the Air Force anyways. But I think the question that I have there though is, and I get what you're saying. It's almost like you're trying to select people by talking to certain groups and not to others, or talking to those groups and saying, yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily the place for you, right?
Yeah.
How does AI come into that equation though?
So I think AI may not come into that equation directly.
Okay.
But I'm just sharing that thought of when you're really manufacturing your entire process when you're trying to attract candidates and filter candidates. So when the connection in my thought there is when you have voice AI, I want to be able to have a candidate that can have a conversation early on without tying up my human resources.
Of course.
Right.
To ask all of those questions they want, because they may discover, look, you have on-calls every Thursday, and the person goes, well, I can't do on-call on Thursday because I got to do, I have my kid at home, or I can't travel, or I could never work for the wage that you're offering. There's some subset of this job that isn't a fit. If you could allow candidates to really quickly sort of self-select out by asking questions that at a depth that you couldn't include in your standard job ad, I think you've sped up the process for both sides.
You've got a bilateral opportunity to reject each other, basically.
Yeah, and that's where I would advise organizations when they're looking at their hiring process is to look at it as a two-sided coin, where you really want to give as much control to the applicant. And today's applicant wants speed. There are large organizations or small organizations even that are completely ghosting candidates.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You've got all the way through the hiring process, and all of a sudden you never hear from them again.
Yep.
So you can use AI automation to help with a ton of that. Like once you've made the decision you're not going to hire people, there's a lot of follow-up tying that off that can be very humane, but be triggered through automation.
And I guess you're talking about having these conversations at scale, and an AI or the computer can have, a multitude of conversations simultaneously. It's not like you have to schedule the computer.
Yeah, you can do it anytime. So a lot of my clients will have, they're outside of maybe posting on Indeed or the other big jobs boards. They might be trying to attract through social media channels. Right. And the plus side is you're going to get a lot of candidates. The downside is you're going to get a lot of candidates. So in order for the organization not to be overwhelmed and be able to have timely conversations with the people they would want to hire, there has to be some sort of pattern recognition happening, and AI can help that. Let me give you an example of a real world way one company is using automations. There are assessment tools that can help predict how well somebody's going to perform in a job. There's a ton of them out there. And one of my clients is advertising on movie theaters and on like Top Golf, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're in a blue collar industry, but they're like, what would you be, how would you do as a garage door technician? It's a 6-figure job, right? But people have that natural, they're already employed. You're trying to get them. So what they do is they scan a code. They're interacting with a questionnaire that's driven by AI that's based on real data from this company that says this person will perform well if you invest the $30,000 in 2 months to train this person to be a garage door tech.
Right.
But what the applicant gets back, and this is all pattern recognition, is 3 videos. It's 3 videos of actual employees that are working for this guy's company that are video from them saying, I love working for this company, and I'm just not going to say the name here just not to advertise them, but I love working for this company, right? And I was a waiter before I became this technician. So then you can chat with that technician online. That chat is an AI bot that's trained with the way that technician would have answered all of those questions.
Wow.
So they can get their questions answered. And then what they're trying to do is the AI technician says, David, based on what you're sharing with me, why don't we do a video call while I'm on my truck running my route? So it automatically schedules it on their calendar.
Wow.
So, they pull up, they get on a video call. Why do we want on a video call? Well, we want them to see the actual job, what's happening. I want to make sure this person is somebody we would actually put in a home, right, with our customer.
Right.
And AI's already done a bunch of work there. It's helped make that connection. It's helped screen to make sure this person's a good candidate. Now all the technician has to do is say, hey, David, sounds like based on what you're saying, this might be of interest. Why don't you come do a ride along with me? I can give you a $150 gift card. We work weekends. You don't even have to take time off of your job and just see if you even like it.
All right, where do I go?
Right? So,
David's taking notes right now. It's like, this sounds better than what I got.
I love garage door dudes.
But, but think about that pattern. And now if the technician decides, David wouldn't be a fit for our company, that technician doesn't have to carry the weight of that. They can say, David, great chatting with you. Hopefully you know more. I'm going to have our HR department be in touch with you. Right. And then that's sort of an automated process to kindly offload that person.
Right.
What we're doing is speed to hiring, and we're making HR, traditional HR, sort of the last step in the hiring process rather than the first screening process, because our belief is that this hiring process is a very human decision. And the closer I can put the person actually doing the job that the new employee is going to have to do, and the faster I can do that, the more I'm going to increase the odds that there's a synergy there. And as the employer, I can close the deal with the applicant. And as an applicant, I get to see really what is it I would be doing. So I'm coming into it without these, rose-colored glasses. That's an example of a process you could not run without some sort of AI tools and some sort of automation and thought into that. So if you're thinking about using AI just to do the same process you've always done, I think you're sort of limiting yourself. You should be like tearing apart and saying, what do these new tools like voice AI and being able to train an AI voice that sounds like me and can answer questions like me? How can I deploy that in a way that assists the candidate?
So it creates an active recruiting process, basically, as opposed to the typical recruiting process where we have to imagine how somebody's going to perform in a job and the candidate has to imagine what that job's going to be like.
Exactly.
It facilitates a lot more activity without necessarily increasing the human burden, the human resources burden or manager burden.
Yeah, you can run a voice AI model like that for around fully deployed on a lot of different platforms, around $5 an hour of talk time, just like the processing costs, right? And running through your phone lines and that. And it can always be available. So if you want to interact with candidates when they get done with their day job and they want to call in at 9:00 at night, you can fire up and have a very real conversation. I follow all of the latest things in AI, so I feel like I'm fairly in tune to what's going on. And I called into my bank the other day, and I talked to an AI agent, and I was 10 minutes in before I realized I wasn't actually talking to a human. That's how good it's getting. Now, I'm also of the belief that we should never try to fool people. So in my own applications, I always identify that you're talking to an AI. And the way I do that is I'm a digital agent. Think of me like a fast pass ride to a busy Disney ride. My job is to make this easy for you and get you connected with the right person in the fastest time that I can.
Yeah.
Hey, are you listening to this and thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could talk to David about this? Well, you're in luck. We have a special offer for listeners of the HR Data Labs podcast. A free half-hour call with me about any of the topics we cover on the podcast or whatever is on your mind. Go to salary.com/HRDL consulting to schedule your free 30-minute call today.
One of the things that I've seen lately is, especially for what should be more customer service or customer-oriented focused companies, where they put chats in between you and actually talking to a live person. And I'm talking on the consumer side, not necessarily on the HR side. So we're kind of getting used to talking to AI, at least initially anyways, as a country, as a consumer base.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, to me, there's something wrong with that getting into the HR world, except what you're talking about is a higher touch AI. What I'm talking about is a lower touch, dumber AI, which doesn't satisfy that need.
Yeah, so I think where you run into a challenge at the highest level of HR and organizations is because they're judging based on their outdated reference point. If you went back 90 days, your online chat still feels robotic. You get frustrated half of the time. In the last 90 days, you can't tell the difference that you're not talking to a real human. That is going to show up in the HR world. And the question then, that's legitimate question is, so how do we think about this? How do we deploy it? I think you still have to come down to the decision on who to hire is a very human decision. It affects the life of that person and what they're able to provide for their family. When you hire somebody inappropriately and they churn out of your organization, I feel like as an employer, you're causing damage to society, certainly to that person.
Sure, and their family. Yeah.
And their family, right? So it's incumbent to get it right. And you have to get comfortable being in HR that part of your job is to say no to a lot of people.
Yep.
Right.
Right. And that is not a bad thing, but how do we say no to people in a way that is in their best interests? And there is a ton of data. It's almost like if you had, I always think about it, like if you had a bunch of kids and you were able to say, the one on this end with the right opportunity and training and instruction, they could play at Carnegie Hall. And this one with the same time and instruction and all of that, they're probably going to be a karaoke singer at best. Like we accept that there are natural talents at a lot of things. Like, it doesn't matter how much you train at something. If you're going to be at the pro level of it, it's not only training determination, but there's also a little bit of inherent drive and skill and affinity for that thing. And that's what you can really get at with pattern recognition, is to say, this seed, this person really does well in this kind of soil, and they blossom and they grow quickly. And, you think about dysfunctional companies. Dysfunctional companies have a lot of employees, and a certain subset of those employees thrive in a dysfunctional environment.
Right.
Like they're best off being able to identify employees that do well in a dysfunctional environment. And they're better off being able to exclude the employees that don't do well in a dysfunctional environment. We all have a place that to us feels like home. And that's where AI can be helpful, is to be able to get to know you as a person, as a human, and say, you're going to thrive in this environment surrounded by a bunch of individuals like this and these kinds of challenges.
But you're talking about it as if AI becomes the enabler in that part to find the right fit, right?
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately where we're going. I think at some point in the future, we'll have a life concierge that is an AI that knows us more intimately than we even know ourselves, and can proactively on our behalf go out and find opportunities that we're uniquely suited for. Everyone will have their own sports agent. And they'll negotiate the deals for us.
With the business partner on their
yeah.
with the businesses, and it's an AI on that side too. So it's really just an exchange of information. It's an exchange of data, an API for the AI.
But not just disconnected data, right? But really understanding why and how things work. So I can't wait for the day where I say, David, have your AI call my AI, and they can have lunch together.
Yeah, well, that probably would happen. They'd probably go to the internet cafe, get it.
And then I'd be like, what's this big credit card charge that my AI just racked up on my...
Didn't I tell him only bottles of wine that are less than $100?
No lobster for you.
It's virtual lobster and virtual wine. So, I have a shellfish allergy. Virtual lobster won't hurt me. But in that case, though, what we're talking about is we're talking about probably more of a gig economy where I'm more of a free agent, and today I could work for XYZ, and tomorrow I could work for, YZX. It doesn't really matter as long as the two are handshaking and making sure that my AI and the AIs for those businesses, or collectives as they were, understand what my role is, understand what my reputation is from past gigs, and whether or not my skills will fit what they have available for me.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum just released a study a couple of weeks ago where they projected by the year 2025, which is so far in the future.
Oh my God, that's really a long way away.
That 52% of work-related tasks will be replaced by robotics or AI. 52% in 2025.
Sorry, I'm going to call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
That's too close.
Yeah. And I would say I believe that you believe that because history has always said that those kinds of changes take a long time.
Right.
But the truth is that change is happening so rapidly. There, as an example, and I will be happy to go on the record, I would say by 2025, late 2025, there will be no call centers in the US at all. The reason is all of that can be handled today with technology that exists that can do the job better than humans, and that humans would prefer to do the job through those AIs. There's no situation under which a corporate for-profit entity is going to continue to incur the cost of massive physical structures, call centers, paying people to recruit those people, paying to train those people, training to manage those people. They're just not going to do it. And so that industry will entirely go away. We're talking millions and millions of people. If you follow robotics right now, you look at Tesla. Tesla has been working on a humanoid robot, which is sort of still clunky after 3 years of being under construction. There was a company that was started 18 months ago that is fully humanoid, that can learn human tasks from scratch without programming. So it literally just looks at the items in front of them and goes, oh, this is an apple, that's edible, these are dishes, and knows how to manipulate all those.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
We tend to think that those are going to be expensive robots. They're actually not. When you look at the costs of the components that are inside of one of those robots, your average robot will come in somewhere around the size of the price of a mid-size sedan here in the U.S. Which means,
but you can't take it to get to work.
Yeah, but what that means is that it is likely, more than likely, that even middle-class families will have a humanoid robot in their homes that can learn and do any of the tasks that you need to do.
Jonathan, but it's a perfect world. And I don't buy that people are going to sign up to buy a robot, not yet at least, a robot in their home and trust something like that somebody else programmed.
Yeah, because you're my age, right?
Right.
That's it.
I've seen too many movies. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you might have watched too many movies, but have you seen a young kid like I've seen babies pick up a magazine like this, a paper magazine, and swipe on it.
Sure.
Because they think it's an iPad. They expect that the world's going to respond that way. So, but we're compressing if you look at like a 50-year time span, humans are really good at adapting over time, but we're compressing that into a 5-year time span.
I would say I agree with you with the caveat that I think the capability will be there by 2025 to have everything replaced. But I do think the adoption curve is going to slow that down because, I mean, you're right. You've got babies, you've got all these young people, but you still have old dogs like us.
Yeah, because ChatGPT took so long for people to change their workflows. Like I would say 80% of people are running things through ChatGPT.
Yeah, but Jonathan, they still don't really understand the prompts well. They still don't get it. And a lot of the data, and by the way, I've seen this and I've tested it a few times. Some of the data that they're using is specious at best as underlying lookups to some of the information they're collecting. And so I get what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. I'm just saying it's not 2025.
But if you look at it's the pace of change. If you would have went back 90 days ago, there would have been no voice AI on the planet that would have passed for anything. 90 days later, there's voice AI that I guarantee that you could not distinguish from a human voice or the human responses. That's a 90-day, the cost of that, even like the cost of processing a GPT model in 1 year, the cost of delivery of that has gone down by 40x. You don't see 40x reduction in costs in any other sort of technology at any other point in human history.
Okay.
Like we're getting really close to general artificial intelligence, which is very interesting, right? Like right now, everything is purpose built.
It is, except I'm not willing to say that the robots are taking over yet.
I hope they don't take over. So just
no, they won't. They won't. And we can pull out the plug.
Yeah,
there's a plug, and we can pull out the plug, and this isn't going to be a Cylon situation from Battlestar Galactica.
Take out a few data centers, we're good.
Yeah. Or shoot it in the battery. Or if it's a lithium-ion battery, it's going to blow up anyways.
But, while this is all conjecture, right?
Yeah.
These are ways that if you're leading an organization, you really have to mentally stretch yourself to think, how is the world shifting and how is it changing? And what I notice when I'm in organizations are people are hiring the same way today that they did last year, and it isn't last year.
Yeah.
Right.
So much has changed. The expectations that people have around the workplace are different. The expectation around transparency that young people have as they come into the workplace are different. And the response to that for many aged organizations are, hey, these millennials don't want to work, or there's a complaint towards the workforce that's coming in. And when the reality is it's actually the workplace that hasn't really adopted to modern day reality.
It's true.
Our schools are the same way. Our kids grow up swiping on devices, watching, dynamic history on the Discovery Channel with CGI graphics, all of that. They can Google anything at an instant's notice, and then they show up at school and they sit in a classroom with a printed textbook that was written 10 years ago.
Right.
That just keeps getting republished
at least
with a
10 years ago.
teacher who hasn't done a bit of study since they got out of college a decade ago.
Right.
Like, and you wonder why they're disconnected in the classroom and screwing off. It's because education hasn't kept up with the pace at which young people are used to learning.
Well, my kid goes to a school that uses Chromebooks. They don't bring home any textbooks anymore. Everything they do is using Chrome, and they use a lot of online resources. They use a lot of videos. They do a lot more modern things that I ever thought they would.
Yeah, and they have to.
He barely takes paper home anymore. I mean, he gets some workbooks, but that's because I need him to do some extra stuff.
And I would guess in another few months, when they really, get their act together, there'll be MacBooks everywhere.
I pray.
Yeah.
Right. Having some Apple stock left.
Chromebooks, it's sort of like going back to the dark ages.
David's eyes just lit up when you said that.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
My Apple stock took a major hit because of the Department of Justice.
Just really went off the charts. There's this sort of existential question when you ask, like, how do you come to be here? It's an interesting thing, and you probably experience this as males in society. I don't know what it is for women in society. I'm, just because I'm not one, but I have 4 sisters. But you can't be a guy, at least here in the U.S., and within 15 minutes max of meeting another guy, you're going to get this question: what do you do for a living? Like, it's sort of very early in conversation when you meet another guy. It's what do you do? It's sort of like context. It'll be interesting when we're in a situation where it doesn't take all of that human effort to keep society going, and people are free from just working for a living. Like that.
Oh, I wish I was alive during that time, but that's not going to be I'm not going to have that. But I'd love that if that was true.
Yeah.
Usually it's, hey, do you know about hockey? That's my first question. Hey, do you play hockey?
Yeah. Well, you are an advanced species, David.
I'm definitely not.
But you get where I'm going with that. Like, it
Not
is
human.
sort of a very early thing, right? About your identity being so closely tied to what do you do for work.
Right.
And it will, because one of the things that we tend to love to do is to talk to people who are either analytical in nature. We'd like to kind of bond with those people like we were talking about before. You and Dwight like to live dangerously. I live dangerously by playing hockey or skating or whatnot. That's okay. I don't like getting off my skates too high. So there you go.
So you're allowed to be 6 inches off the ground at most.
At most. And then that's it. That's the floor right there. Get it? Or the ceiling, floor, whatever. But I guess going back to what we were originally talking about, though, and I love your premise, but I have to say that in order for the robots to take over, in order for HR to allow robots to become more part of the processes, a lot of things have to happen. And one thing that we talk about all the time, that Dwight and I spend most of our time talking about, is that the data that underlies HR is usually crap. And in order for the AI to be able to make decisions that are well-founded, it needs to have a better training data set. And the training data sets that we're currently working with suck.
Why do, and I would agree with you, but why is it that most HR departments have crap data?
It's because we're human and we make mistakes. And there are mistakes that we can forgive that don't drive payroll. And then there are some mistakes that we go, it's fine. Like the department numbers. Are they not correct? It's okay. The GL stuff comes out someplace else, so we don't have to worry about payroll getting booked to the wrong department. So there are things that we allow the payroll system or the HR system to live in a state of imperfection because it doesn't hurt us.
Well, and I would go one step deeper is that the time and attention it takes to collect great data and analyze that data is beyond most humans' capability and the thing that they like to do. Like most people don't like that part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, audits suck.
When we turn over data collection and analysis and identifying what's important and what's spurious to AI models and data models, you actually get better quality data just by the act of feeding it to that. So you, as an example, if you go to an oncologist for cancer, here's a human that's, spent $400,000 plus, right, to put themselves through school, 8 years plus residency. And now you can take a picture with an iPhone camera and get as accurate a diagnosis as that person can give you. Second to that, you can feed that picture into a database that compares it to every source of cancer that's ever happened on the planet and the 3 people that actually responded to this sort of treatment. Your doctor coming out of school and going through that will never be able to keep up with that. I think at some point it will be malpractice for a doctor not to plug into an AI for an understanding of what's happening with a patient. And you're going to see that across almost every industry where the outcome is better because you have an AI. That doesn't mean that it doesn't present very real, challenges to humans as a species, and even raise up a question of what does it mean to be human and how do we find meaning in life? These are existential sorts of questions, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle, and I think it's coming faster than most people recognize.
Remember back to our training and our educational systems, when we learned about, how did people go through stages of development, fire revolutionized certain things, smelting, iron into steel revolutionized things, being able to create automobiles in mass revolutionized things, cotton gin, other things. They revolutionized pieces of human existence. And so then we stopped focusing on the labor that needed to do those things, and then we were able to turn our attention elsewhere. So what you're mentioning now is that computers and data and connectivity and artificial intelligence on top of that enables us to stop worrying about certain things and focus on others. So really, isn't it, in getting back to the HR, doesn't this then help HR then get out of one business and help focus strategically on other businesses?
Yeah, that's exactly my point. All that filtering and mindless noise and data, if they can offload that and just spend their time connected human to human in the business, I think that not only will HR professionals find that more gratifying work, it'll also have a bigger impact on the businesses that they work for.
On that note, perfect ending to a great podcast. Jonathan, thank you very much. We're going to have to do a round 2 on this because there's so much more to uncover.
We could easily have gone that 5 hours that we were joking about. I mean, this is fun.
Well, we made it past the 15-minute mark, so
yeah, no, you were fine. After 15 minutes. Yeah, well, I think the 15 minutes actually ended your introduction. And then we got into the meat of the podcast.
Tune into the next episode where we shall reveal what happened to Dwight when he was running behind a large parachute and accidentally hooked onto the weather flag and flew 300 feet in the air.
And then dropped it.
To be continued. To be continued. Bum, bum, bum. Anyways, Jonathan, thank you so much. That was awesome.
A pleasure, gentlemen.
Dwight, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here, Jonathan.
And thank you all for listening. Take care and stay safe. And also pay attention. We're going to have round 2 with Jonathan Whistman. The podcast title of that will be The Robots Will Be Taking Over in 2025.
Wild ride.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.